In this video, we're going to be looking at Ausom's entire core lineup of electric scooters. I'm going to be going over what the differences between all three of these are and kind of the progression of each scooter so that you can know which one is right for you. This is the Ausom L1 coming in at about $600. This is the Ausom L2 Max dual motor coming in around $900. And this is the Ausom DT2 Pro coming in right around $1,200. Now, at a glance, these scooters look very similar and they do actually have a lot of very similar parts. So first we'll go over what is exactly the same about all of them and what Ausom keeps consistent across their whole lineup. And then we'll go into what makes them different. We'll talk about the differences in components and the differences in performance. And I'll tell you which one I think is the best value for your money. Viewed from above, these scooters are almost indistinguishable. They have the exact same cockpit components. You'll see the exact same locking grips, the same trigger throttle, the exact same screen, although the L1 does get a yellow logo. So if that's something that's important to you, then you probably want to go with the L1. I'm just joking. You get handlebars that are the exact same width and also have the same clamp so that you can switch out the handlebars for your own if you want. Even these button clusters here for the turn signals and the horn are identical other than the dual motor button, but even on the single motor scooter, there's still a space where the dual motor button would be. You get identical brake levers on the L1 and the L2, though you get hydraulic brakes on the DT2 Pro, so these levers are different, but I'll dive into the brakes in just a second. The other thing that's identical across all three models is the stem clamp here. It's a twist style with a little wedge that keeps it locked in place, and it has a safety pin on all three of them. Now, despite appearances, those are the only components that all three scooters share identically. Now, there are some cases where two scooters have the same components, but that's it for components and features that all three share exactly the same. So while the L2 and the DT2 have fixed stems, the L1 gets an adjustable stem here. It is just fixed with a single quick release clamp. Ausom has executed this adjustable stem really well. It stays super solidly in place, and I haven't had any issues with the handlebars sliding down on me while I ride. I think that the fixed height on these handlebars are done really well. I am a 6'1" rider and they don't feel short at all, but they don't feel excessively tall. So even if you're shorter, I don't think they're going to feel like you're having to reach up really high to grab them. And if you're taller than me, I don't feel like you're going to have to lean down a whole ton where it feels sketchy in any way. For the stems themselves, we see quite a bit of variation in both design and location of the front headlight. So here on the DT2, we've got the headlight on the stem itself up a little higher. Here we have the front headlight down at the very bottom on the L2, and then we have a mountable headlight on the L1 that is mounted with a little bracket right here. All three of these lights are going to require additional helmet and handlebar lights if you're going to be riding regularly at night. These headlights will get you by in a pinch though. All three models get spring suspension, with the L1 having slightly shorter travel and being a little bit on the stiffer side. The L2 and the DT2 shares the same suspension. It would have been nice to maybe see the DT2 Pro go up to hydraulic suspension, but the suspension that's included is pretty decent for all three and gets the job done on all three. We get 10-inch tires on all three models, though the L2 and the DT2 share the exact same tread pattern and also have slightly wider tires. As mentioned, the L1 and the L2 get cable-driven disc brakes, while the DT2 Pro gets Zoom hydraulic disc brakes. The hydraulic disc brakes are a significant step up in both control and stopping power. These cable-driven brakes end up needing to be adjusted quite often, and they don't have the same level of touch and the same super quick lockup braking that the hydraulic discs have. The easiest way to tell the difference between these three scooters is by looking at the riding platforms. You can see that as you go up the lineup, the riding platform gets bigger and the rear riding tail also gets bigger. You also actually get some sections of matte on the DT2 Pro for a little bit of extra grip, though all three models do have that matte material on the rear tail. You also notice that the L2 and the DT2 Pro get double charging ports, which allows you to fast charge these scooters, whereas the L1 just has a single charging port. You'll also notice that on the riding platforms themselves, there is more design, and I think the DT2 Pro has the best looking design. It has kind of the coolest, most angular design features here. So we now have a pretty good idea of the differences in both design and features of these three scooters. Let's dive into performance now. Kind of the main defining characteristic of the Ausom brand of electric scooters is the fact that they pack some of the best bang for the buck in terms of performance. Basically, every single one of these scooters is unmatched for top speed in their class of scooter. Let's take a look at the motor power for each one of these scooters, and also the claim top speeds, and also the actual top speeds that I got in my GPS testing. There is really nothing on the market that touches the L1 in terms of top speed. Its acceleration is kinda about the same as you would get on other scooters, but it continues to just pull all the way up to that almost 28 mile an hour top speed. If the biggest thing you care about is performance and you're on a tight budget, the L1 is one of the best scooters that you can get for that. You'll notice that the top speeds for the L2 and the DT2 Pro are kind of similar, and you might go, oh, well, I'll just go with the L2 Max because, you know, you still get a really good speed and it is cheaper than the DT2 Pro. And overall, I think that is a decent idea. If you're on a budget and wanting to save some money and all you care about is getting kind of close to that 40 mile an hour mark, then I think the L2 Max is a fantastic option for that. However, the big thing for me in terms of performance that makes the DT2 Pro stand out is the acceleration. They may get up to similar top speeds, but the way that the DT2 Pro gets there is much, much quicker than the L2. For me, acceleration is a really big deal because when you're in a city, that's mostly what you're doing, is stopping and accelerating between lights and stop signs and that kind of stuff. And having faster acceleration is not only more fun, but it's also more efficient for getting where you want to go. However, the fact that you go from a single motor scooter with the L1 to a dual motor scooter with the L2, I do think that this is the most worthwhile jump in terms of performance. You do get good top speed with this, but again, going back to that acceleration, it's basically unbeatable to have dual motors over a single motor. And that also helps with hill climbing, which could be a big deal for you depending on where you live. Now let's take a look at voltages, battery size, claimed max range, and actual range in my testing. You'll see that all three do a pretty decent job of giving you the amount of range that you would kind of expect at each price and you'd kind of want at each price, with the exception being the DT2 Pro, which offers a pretty significant jump in range over the L2 Max. Once again, we're starting to see the DT2 Pro set itself apart from the L2 Max. These two scooters kind of feel the same on paper and share a lot of similarities. However, the things that really matter kind of get cranked up an extra notch when it comes to the DT2 Pro. Okay, let's turn all this data into something tangible. Which one of these scooters is the best value? Well, like with Goldilocks, this middle one is just right for most people. I think that the L2 Max dual motor is the most balanced of the three, and that makes a lot of sense. I think this will appease the needs and the wants of the vast majority of people who are wanting to purchase an electric scooter, especially if you're already considering Ausom. If it's a brand you've heard about and the performance appeals to you, I think that this will satiate most riders. However, if I had to purchase just one of these right now with my own money, I think that hands down the DT2 Pro is worth every extra penny. The hydraulic disc brakes, the increase in range, and the increase in acceleration, while they're not the flashiest upgrades, they are upgrades that make a huge difference to the way it feels to ride the scooter. I think all three of these are hard to beat at the price for performance. However, I think the DT2 Pro is hard to beat at the price across the board in terms of all categories. So if you are looking at these two dual motor scooters and trying to decide which one to buy and you're on the fence and you have the budget for it, I do not think you'll regret spending the extra money for the DT2 Pro. In my opinion, the L1, while it is a great scooter at the price, I think that if you can afford it, that going up to this L2 Max is worth it every single time. If you're on an extremely strict budget and you still want the thrills of going almost 30 miles an hour, there's really no other scooter at that price that offers that. I do think there's scooters at that price that offer a more robust set of features and a little bit more modern feel. However, obviously performance not going to be beat at the price. So let me know what questions you have down below. Let me know if there's anything I didn't answer, and I'll do my best to answer it down in the comments. If you're planning on buying any of these and want to support the channel, the links for all three as well as a discount code will be down below in the description.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.